Okay, it's 7 o'clock according to the official clock on the wall. We'll call this special meeting of the Upshur County City Council of Buchanan to order. You guys are already meeting. Already out of order. And ask if you join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. With respect.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we have our agenda, and we intentionally added this number 4 for additional comments and discussion for whatever we want to talk about. And first on the order of business is Steve Foster, Development Authority.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is give you an update on an item that you helped us with at the Development Authority a few months ago. We went to a company called Buxton and got some data which I think you'll find a little bit interesting. Buxton is a company that helps relocate businesses, retail primarily, throughout the United States. They have 1,900 customers, and they represent in their database over 4,500 different companies, franchise operations, individual stores, etc. And what they do is work with those companies to tell them where they think would be a logical place for them to expand or relocate their new businesses. And a few years ago, they decided to walk the other side of the street. And they did what they call a small cities campaign, where they were able to go to small cities and say, if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to attract retail, we can help you do that. We'll come in and we'll do an analysis of your demographics, and we're the type of people that collect all that data. If you go into CVS, you use your CVS card. If you go to Kroger's, you use your Kroger's card. They pay to collect all that data, and they put it into their system. And what they end up doing is they can put every family in America in one of 60 different categories. And I'll show you a couple of those categories, and they can tell you of those 60 different categories which ones are in your area. And where it used to be location, 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 today it's customer, customer, customer. They want companies to be able to move into an area that have customers that exist here in Upshur County. And so it's sort of matching a hand in a glove, if you will. So that's what this survey is all about. They do all this pretty much through databases. They had a couple of people here, visitors with us. We, like I said, did this a few years ago. As a result of that, we ended up with a couple of businesses here in Buchanan, Goodies and Hibbett Sporting Goods, which we would not have attracted otherwise, because those people like to see third-party, independent data, not something we cooked up and presented to them, but a company that they know and have something to deal with, and they can value the judgment to be correct. So that's what this is all about. I'm not going to bore you with all 151 pages. What I'll do is give you some examples. I've made a copy and left it with the city. But what they do is they come into an area and just quickly then. And they put together a 20-minute drive time around a certain spot in your city. And they collect the data on that 20-minute drive time. As part of this process, they'll allow you to have 3 different locations. But as you can imagine, in Buchanan, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It's basically going to be one location, which tends to be our location tends to be at Main Street and Route 20. The second one we looked at, for example, was out where Walmart is, and the third one is out where Lowe's is. They're all the same, and the data pretty well supports that. But what they do is they come in, they look at a primary drive time, and they start looking at the data in that 20-minute drive time. And there's the 3 locations we picked in Buchanan. And they put a 20-minute drive time around each of those, and they came in and did a separate analysis of each of those locations. But you can almost put one on top of another. There's a 20-minute drive time around Main Street and Route 20. And you can get all the way to Elkins with this drive time. So we asked them to do an extended look at what would incorporate Elkins into it and see how it changed the numbers. Then, as I mentioned to you before, this bottom number here, which is too small to see, is one of 60 different units which they put every family into. And anything greater than 3%, and this is I think 5%,
That's three.
that's 3, right? Anything greater than 3% is considered a major statistical point. And that's what they focus on, is that 3%. Then what they try to do, they find a location or a customer retail operation that basically fits this, and then they provide that information to you. Okay. These are the segments which complement Buchanan. And there is not just a economic analysis of what each of these are, they actually have a narrative that goes with each one of them. And let me, for example, give you an example of that narrative. The largest segment we have is what they call F1. And you got all of them here in this book. And you go and you look at F1. And it's titled Steadfast Conservatives. See if you think this fits Upshur County and Buchanan. A quietly aging cluster. Steadfast Conservatives is home to mature singles and couples living in mid-scale houses and neighborhoods. Houses tend to be white, high school educated, middle class. Many have begun to empty nest or already filled with couples with singles aged 65 or older. The seniority of many residents does not have benefits in the workplace. They earn middle class incomes from skilled jobs in manufacturing, retail, and healthcare, and their incomes go far, allowing residents to own older homes and multiple cars and trucks at higher than average prices. Then it goes on to say lifestyles. These people live up to their old-fashioned reputation. They think the stock market is too risky, computers and internet too confusing, and take preventive medicine before any sign of illness. They even regard aerobic exercise as too strenuous, preferring to spend their leisure time fishing, gardening, antiquing, or doing needlework or woodworking. For their social life, they attend activities sponsored by fraternal orders, veterans clubs, and church groups. As consumers, they're likely to be brand loyal, where they shop at favorite stores like JCPenney's for clothes, Dick's Sporting Goods for outdoor gear, and Joann for needle crafts. And with their middle class incomes, they take a strong automotive market, especially for American-made pickup trucks and mid-sized sedans. To further protect their established lifestyle, they buy a variety of insurance products covering health, life, car, and home. Media. Households and Steadfast Conservatives are fans of traditional media, including print, TV, and radio. They like to get their news from a daily newspaper or the nightly newscasts on network TV. They consider television a primary source of entertainment in their lives, and there are high rates for watching sitcoms, reality shows, daytime soaps, and religious programs. They enjoy reading magazines and appeal to their do-it-yourself sensibilities, including popular titles as Family Handyman, Better Homes and Gardens, Country Living, and their radio tastes include a mixture of big band, classic rock, country, and golden oldies. What do you think? Does it fit a large percentage of our population?
I didn't realize they called me.
Each of these categories are pretty well right on. And I will tell you, if you go through the analysis, the thing that really stands out as different from the last time we did this back in 2007 is all of a sudden 9% of the family units here in Upshur County are what they call urban commuters. People that commute from here to work somewhere else. For example, the FBI Center, biometrics, and businesses that support those. We didn't have that 7 years ago. Also, from left to right on that bar graph above there, the incomes are the highest on the left side, they're the lowest on the right side. So we've got a pretty good distribution, and that large one there, the first one you come to, is that urban commuter profile. They tend to have higher incomes, and they tend to spend their money a little bit differently than other people. Okay. Then they go through what they call a leakage analysis. In other words, where are people spending their money? Are they spending it here locally? And what categories? And if they're not spending it here locally, where are they spending it? And in what segments? They want to guess how we stand in terms of people spending money outside the area or spending it here? No guesses? Most of them are negative, which means that people are spending the money outside of our area for retail options. However, there are a few that we are positive to. For example, guess what? New automobiles and automotive parts. We draw in from outside of our region and we're actually positive there. But there's an awful lot of these things which are negative. And that was hard to read, but for example, this is motor vehicle parts and dealers at the top. You can't even hardly see this, but it's to the right of what's considered the break-even point. Almost everything else is to the left. Those include furniture and home furnishing stores, electronics and appliances, food and beverage, health and personal care, clothing and clothing accessories, sporting goods, general merchandise stores, etc. An awful lot of data around each of those locations which shows what type of category we're losing sales to that could be here that are going somewhere else in the region. And then they go through and break those down into two or three different subsegments in each one of those segments. So if someone's interested in starting a business here, or someone interested in locating a business here, you can show them, hey, there's a need for your product here in Upshur County and Buchanan. Again, all the data, potential, as well as actual sales, and all of those numbers over there are in the red, which means they're negative. And they go through each and every one of these categories. Okay. Then we get into demographics. Tells you how they get their information, what sources it comes from, etc. The good news is, Upshur County is one of 17 counties in West Virginia that has a growing population. One of 17. And it's projected to continue to grow. That growth's going to be slow. These are the three sites we're talking about, and you can see an average growth of somewhere between 0 and about 2% a year. That's projected growth for Upshur County's population. They do a household profile. Again, you can see where the growth's going to be there as well, very low. That's 5%, and that's over 5 years, so 1% a year for households. Population by race, no surprises there. Just about as white as you can possibly get, 99%. And that's not projected to change. Households by Hispanic origin, not a whole lot. Now we get into some interesting data. Population by age. Where are most of our people grouped? And if you'll look, the largest population is about 35 to 44 years in terms of the average, the age. Largest contingents of age group is in that area. And there's a graphic we put on there, and you can see it's actually the 25 to 35 and 35 to 44. That's our biggest population segments. Household income. They have every household broken down into what incomes you might expect. And they also do this by the individual breakouts before, like we said, the urban commuters. And they tell you where they fit. And you can see that other than the people in this room are making $500,000 or more a year, there aren't too many of us out there, right? We actually have a few of those people as well. And then break it down households by income. We have a lot of people that are down here in this low income bracket, but the other thing that's changed over the last 6 years is we're seeing more people in this area that are growing to have more income to dispose of. And that's good, particularly when you're trying to attract retail individuals. And again, this is just change that they're anticipating. Population by race, we already went through this. Basically what this is, they do every location, the 3 locations we sent them, they'll go through and do the same thing. They'll do a leakage analysis and they'll do a demographics. And again, the big news is that we are growing and we're one of the few counties that can claim that. Okay. Then you get into their segmentation analysis, which tells you what every one of those 60 groups is up there. So you can go in and look at them. They can go in and look at them.
Steve, if you don't mind,
Sure.
why do you think we're growing?
I think you're seeing a couple things happen. Personally, I think you're seeing people retire and move back to this area where the cost of living is a lot less. And that's good because those people don't put a lot of stress on the infrastructure, but by the same token, they bring their monies with them. I think that you've seen some job growth here in this county. The oil and gas industry has been fairly strong over the years. A little slow right now, but it's been good. Proximity to Clarksburg, proximity to what's happening up there with the technology corridor at the Mullahan Center in north of Morgantown. We have folks that commute to Morgantown from here. And I think that's going to continue. They want to have a small town identity where they think they can make a difference, or a small town environment where they feel their kids are safe and where we have a very safe reputation, and that's pointed out in the Buxton data as well. And it's quality of life, Dave, that a lot of people are looking for. Okay. Mr. Clemens, how do I convert this to the next one?
Just go ahead and hit your X.
Okay. What they do then is they go through and look at these retailers and they say, okay, based on your demographics, based on your profile, based on our database of 4,000 plus customers, here are the people we think that would fit in your area. Again, it's a little difficult to see. The red bar is where most of your particular company looking to consider this area have their customer base. The little gray things down here at the bottom is the other part of their business. So you can see people that want to be successful here want your coverage to match where their customers are. That line that goes up is a successful match that says, Upshur County, you've got the type of customer base we think these people would be successful in. And we can demonstrate that to them demographically. We've got the data to prove it. And here's an example of one that doesn't fit. Again, there's a retail operation, and you can see we don't cover very many of their highlighted areas. This is the match, and they will not recommend a company consider us. There's 2 other qualifications or quantifications that they have. One is what they call a stretch. There's people that come close to meeting what we need or what we have here in terms of customers, but with the same token, they can't guarantee it's going to be a success. And so they won't recommend it, but they'll encourage you to go after those. And the third issue is one that they feel is one that would be, just does not fit. So doesn't mean you can't go after them and talk to them, but they'll tell you it's just not going to fit. So what they do is they take this data. We've had a development authority meeting to look at it. We've added people to the list we'd like to see them look at and presented that data to our group. Then we take all those names and submit them to Buxton, and they go look and they come back and says, here's we think who fits. They've given us 20 retail businesses which they think that would fit in Upshur County. Everything from restaurants to hardware stores to clothing stores to baby clothing stores, etc. What they then do is where's the word processing? There it is. They write a letter. They write a letter to these customers or potential customers, and they say, we've done analysis for Upshur County, West Virginia, and we feel that they would be an excellent fit for your business. Here's one that's going to Ace Hardware.
Good.
Okay? And basically they say Ace, Upshur County has been identified as a retail location for Ace Hardware based on a retail trade area analysis conducted by Buxton. I think you can mostly read this. By profiling consumers' buying habits, lifestyle, characteristics, and demand density in Upshur County, we are able to select specific retail concepts that can succeed, but are currently not in this trade area. It is through this analysis that we identified you as a candidate for this area. A representative from Upshur County will be contacting you regarding the potential fit here, and we believe that fact-based presentation will prove why Upshur County can be a successful location for one of your stores. Buxton's conducted retail location analysis for over 1,900 clients in 500 communities, and our reputation is basically very successful. Should you have any questions about this, we ask that you will contact either us directly or mail us or the Upshur County Development Authority. What this will hopefully do is spark interest, which we then can look for where these companies might want to locate in Buchanan and Upshur County. That's been one of our real challenges, is finding places where people will make land and or buildings, sites available for people to move into. There are some current developments, which I can't share with you this evening, that we're working on that would allow us to attract several of these into one location. And that's exciting. So the timing of this coming together is very good for us. Now, I have a list of those 18 accounts, and I'd be happy to share that information with people that are interested in various type of retail activities. We can tell them who fits, who doesn't fit, etc. And let those people then in turn work to see if they'd like to put the money into a franchise operation or a store operation. And that's what happened with the last two. It was Sporting Goods. We put them in touch with several people, and they selected Tom Messenger, and they located there next to Walmart. Goodies, we had those people in here. We showed them every available site we had, and they chose to go next to Kroger's, which is where they have located. And guess what? Both of those companies tell me they've been very pleased being here in Upshur County. They're very successful with their sales results. So again, a little confidence that what Buxton's telling us makes a lot of sense. So what we're trying to do is put those hands in the various gloves and see that we've got something to sell. So that's what your sourcing went for. I'd be happy to share data with you one-on-one. Come out our way. We'll be happy to let you take a look at this. I've presented a copy to Rich Clemens because I think he might be particularly interested in the demographic data which is in there. And also the leakage analysis. If someone wants to take a look at that and say, well, what could I put in here that we're not taking advantage of today? What businesses could we put here that could sell locally as opposed to have people travel out of the area? Again, there's everything from restaurants to children's wear to, you just name it, everything in there is covered.
Steve, can you tell us what type businesses were not recommended?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we went with a list of them. Let's see if I can find that up. Here's a list of people we went to and talked about them about. You can see Applebee's is a match, but here's several that weren't. Cheddar's, Chili's, DSW, Shoe Warehouse, Famous Footwear, Jamba Juice, never even heard of that one before. Longhorn Steakhouse, Meineke, Midas, Olive Garden, Payless Shoes, Rack Room Shoes. A lot of things I have people say, well, we want a shoe store here in Buchanan. Well, you can buy shoes at Goodies. You can do that, but
How about Lululemon?
Pardon me?
Lululemon.
You can see a lot of these that we check out, they say they're just not a fit for our area. And it's based on these companies all have profiles, what they're looking for. They've got how many people they want to be in the area, they've got how many households they want to be in that area, and they want the right income level to support this, so they know that's where their businesses are going to be successful. When we put together, excuse me, Dave, go ahead.
Go ahead.
When we put together a letter that goes out, we've got data that's tailored specifically to that account. For example, Ace Hardware. We tailor why Upshur County ought to fit for them, where our demographics are specifically to them. They do analysis of, here's your average population that you serve, and here's your average households, and we either meet or exceed that in every instance. So it truly does look like it's going to be a good fit for them. And like I said, this is the type of independent data that's going to be required for us to continue to attract retail development. You might ask, why is a development authority spend any time trying to attract retail? It's very difficult to bring professional people into this area. For hospitals, for doctors, for professors at college, for a whole host of different professional organizations. If you don't have any type of retail shopping, if you don't have any type that's going to give people a feel that you've got a community that offers this. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this. The other thing which I hope will come out of this is you don't have to have a franchise to be successful. You can take an idea and have the data here to say there is a need for this, we're losing sales outside of this area, and you can go start your own boutique or your own restaurant. But at least you've got some data here to support the concept. And when you go to the bank, you can say, hey, look here, we've done our homework. Here's an analysis that says this can be successful. And we'd like your support to be able to do that. So again, anything that helps the overall community helps economic development. And this may allow us, for example, to attract additional businesses that are moving in to support the FBI Center or the biometrics. They want to have an office located a few miles away. As long as they can get the broadband service and they have can get people to move into the area, there's no reason why Buchanan can't play in that market.
Is there data in this, Steve, that would show, I think furniture store was one of the areas where people go out of the area to shop. Is there information in this data that, even though we have several furniture stores, it points to why they go out of the area?
Well, it's choice, I guess, to have the most choice. And yeah, we've actually, Donnie had some furniture stores identified that might fit into this area. Okay.
When you read your narrative, you didn't mention in the narrative the impact of the college. Do they have any comments regarding the measurable impact that Wesleyan would have?
The letter or the package that goes to each one of these accounts actually has a segment on the college right up front. We took the recent analysis we did there in terms of economic impact to the area and put that number of $55 million right out there so they can see that. 1,500 students, half of which are from out of state. Absolutely, we're pushing that concept. The fact we have a hospital here is important to people. Those are two major legs on Main Street that we definitely want to keep. It helps make your sale, absolutely. The other thing we're trying to work on too is people look to come to this area and they can't find a place to live. Housing, upper scale housing, if you will, is difficult to find. And we hopefully are going to be able to make an announcement there shortly as well, in terms of someone that's going to come in as a developer and put some upscale housing here in Buchanan, Upshur County. Other questions?
Steve, it seems that Buxton's focus is primarily shopping or services, retail. Is there a similar kind of firm that does or has an orientation more perhaps towards service industries or?
What type of service?
Well,
Manufacturing.
Services in general for public. They need certain kinds of people, not necessarily buying goods, but something. Didn't know whether there was anything like Buxton that takes a look at those kinds of.
Actually, Rich, they'll do that. If you look into the subsegments of the leakage analysis, you'll find we don't have any electronic stores.
Right.
We don't have any bookstores to speak of that are really geared to that type of information accessibility. We don't have the furniture store varieties that people like to have to look at. It's specifically spelled out. Bars versus, fast food. We're pretty well covered fast food.
Right.
But a sit-down restaurant, there's a shortage, there's a leakage out of this area. Higher-end restaurants, there's a leakage out of this area. So they identify all of these very specifically, but to go into that would take a lot longer time than you probably want to spend here this evening. So it's good data to have. And again, it allows you to take this as an independent drive and talk to people. And I'll also tell you that we got this for less than half of what everybody else is being asked to pay for, because we did this 6 years ago. And by going back, we get a heck of a break on being able to do this. In fact, this will probably be the last time we'll be able to do that for the foreseeable future.
Steve, I think until you have the conviction of Corridor H, I don't mean to be a downer, but when you look at us from a demographic standpoint, a population density standpoint, I think it's very difficult for us to envision where we would be when Corridor H is finished versus where we are today. It's going to make such a huge impact in this area. And I think, if you look at furniture stores, and we have some successful furniture stores, but maybe not the variety that people want. But we just don't have density of population to sustain a lot of different kind of scenarios.
We've got about 25,000, 26,000 people that they'll identify. But if you look at that extended drive time, up to 40 minutes, it's 60,000 people. Okay? And if you look at a 50-mile radius with Buckhannon to Center, there's over 180,000 people. Okay? It all depends if you can draw people here and what they're looking for. Corridor H, we know from the Department of Highways that the traffic count on that road will treble once Corridor H is done. Corridor H will be 75% done at the end of this year. And we're working like crazy to try and get the other 25%.
Well, we have two major stores, that the two automobile dealerships out on 33 that draw from 100 miles away.
Sure.
And they have to be selling something because they've always got new vehicles out there.
And that's identified as an area where we draw people into the area for. Auto parts store, you wonder how in the world can we support 4 auto parts stores? Well, we got 16 used car dealers. I guess you gotta fix them up before you can sell them. But
Not necessarily.
Well, not before, after. So,
Steve, do you think, knowing that these places here, restaurants like Applebee's would work here, do you think a letter, joint effort from the Upshur County Commission and maybe the city, send a letter to Applebee's saying we would really like for you to look at our area, would do any good? Because a lot of people have never heard of Buckhannon. I bet you go to the CEO of Applebee's and say, would you like to come to Buckhannon again? Which state said that?
that's right.
And people doesn't know, and I think a letter from the county commission to the city, to some of these places going, we'd like to have you to locate here, or at least look at our area, which spark a little interest, and we might pick up something there that we wouldn't pick up without doing that.
That hasn't worked that well in the past, and I'll tell you why. Every county commission in the state could be writing those letters saying, come look at us. But when you got data like this, buddy.
Well, I understand the data. The data is great, I'm not saying that. But when you send a letter to Ace Hardware, and they also get a letter from the county commission and city saying, we'd really appreciate you looking in our area, I don't think that hurts any.
Doesn't hurt, but even more importantly is if you get them here, you take them around and introduce them to people. And that's where you really can help the cause.
And I agree with that, but if you're sitting up there and you're looking at that and you got a letter from, and all of a sudden you get a letter from the Upshur County Commission, city, you know what I mean, going, my gosh, even the Upshur County Commission would like for us to look at this.
Can't hurt.
We got one from the mayor, you know what I mean, these people really like, they seem like a nice friendly town, I mean, they even took time out of their busy schedule to send a letter, it can't hurt.
The Olive Garden and Red Lobster, all owned by Barton Enterprises or something like that.
No, it's not part.
Anyway, in Morgantown a couple months ago, talking to the manager of the Olive Garden down there, he said they have a program now that combining those two restaurants together, and that they had mentioned Buckhannon in one of the meetings that he was at. And whether that would mean anything or not, but at least they knew that Buckhannon was around, and they mentioned that a combination of those two restaurants would go well here, especially with the college. So
Doesn't it all come down to having a franchisee who will go out there and buy the franchise and invest the capital? I mean, all of this is beside the point if you don't have a person who is willing to be the franchisee on all of these companies. I mean, you can send letters till kingdom come. And if you don't have somebody who has the capital or creditworthiness to go out and say, okay, I'm going to put my shirt out there and try to open one of these locations, it's really all for naught. I mean, so so the effort needs to be in identifying the individuals who have the capital to go out there, whether it's finding partnership groups that have land, and the liquid capital to open up, because all these, there are franchise fees, and there's construction, and then there's all the inventory, and then there's the equipment and everything. Applebee's corporate headquarters or Olive Garden, they don't sit there and decide, we're going to put a store here and put a store here. They have people that come to them and say, we want to put a store here, and here's, by the way, $1 million to get the franchise rights to do that. So, until you get the franchisees for a lot of this stuff, unless you're going to do what unless the alternate track that you mentioned is individuals who will take this data and go and open their own non-franchise. Everybody talks about wanting franchise locations, but there's a lot more to that than just saying, hey, we're Upshur County, West Virginia, put a location here. That's not how it works.
Well, for example, Pivot Sporting Goods is here. There's no franchise operation with that. Goodies is here. There's no franchise operation that's involved with that. These companies do put company stores there. They make the investment. They just want to make sure that their investment's going to be in a place where they can be successful.
Do we have, can we identify which ones do that, and because not all of them do that. A lot of these, especially the restaurant locations, are franchise.
Not
Not all of them, but most of them, a lot of them are, but not all of them.
Oftentimes you have franchises that go way beyond just a certain location. And I tried to get a Taco Bell here 20-some years ago. And the person that's got the right to the Taco Bell had no interest in opening. I tried to buy from him for $1.
There's a great example, Taco Bell. What do you think it takes in the way of capital as a franchise owner to put a Taco Bell in? You can go online and look it up yourself. It's $1.3 million. Okay? That's a lot of burritos. But even beyond that, the more important thing,
real fast.
I think it's even more of a hurdle than that is they want you to sign an agreement that says you'll put 2 more in within the next 5 years. So what do you do in that situation? You identify the guy that's already got the franchises and that he can expand in this area. And in all candor, that's someone we're talking with right now. They have 68 different Taco Bell locations. The hard part for those guys has been able to find a piece of property that they can build on here in Buchanan and Upshur County. They'll tell you, as well some of the developers I've talked to, we have the most expensive land in Buchanan, West Virginia than anywhere else almost in the state of West Virginia.
Well, some of these old codgers get rid of it now.
What can I ask you to help me with that? Guido? You just got to constantly work the various opportunities that you have, and you hope some of these are going to take off. And I think some will. I think as a result of this study, we'll end up with some new businesses retail-wise here in Upshur County.
I think when some businesses see these doing well, then it will attract some others too.
That's why Goodies and Hibbets has been a great example for us.
And if you ask the people here, if they're gonna go shopping, they're headed to Clarksburg. There's no place to shop here. And if you wanna go have a good meal, you're gonna go to the Texas Roadhouse, Applebee's in Clarksburg, Elkins, if you want. I'm not saying there isn't good restaurants here. I'm not down by Centennial or CJ's or the Legends or whatever. But if you go to the Texas Roadhouse on Friday or Saturday, get ready. You'll be talking to people from Buchanan or Applebee's. And it's a shame that we can't get them located here. You know what I mean? So citizens of Upshur County doesn't have to drive clear to Clarksburg to sit down and eat at a restaurant.
That's what the leakage analysis says. We're losing money in these certain segments, and that happens to be one of them.
The same token, Friday and Saturday nights, you get out Main Street, sometimes you can't find a place to park.
That's
There
true.
you go.
Anything opens restaurants.
Yeah, but I don't know if I buy some of that, buddy, because I think that when you go up to Clarksburg for a dining experience, oftentimes you're going for more than just a dining experience. You're going to the mall, or you're going to some of the large areas where they're shopping, whether it's engaged or what have you. So, I mean, I still think a lot of the issues we face as a county and a city is density of population. And you're not going to have people going over and over and over again to Applebee's every week for dinner.
Another factor enters into it for restaurants is the requirement that they be on the interstate until quarter H is completed. But it's not an interstate in the common sense of the word.
Take a Cracker Barrel. They will not locate on quarter H. They'll only locate on an interstate,
That's true.
okay? So there's a lot of these people have preconceived ideas of what it's going to take for them to be successful, and you got to just pare them down and continue to talk to them.
Look at where we were 20, you know, I made the comment, I haven't seen it for 21 years, but to come back and look at where our the city is today and county is today compared to 21 years ago, it's a change that already did.
Come on, what?
You know, we'll continue.
Well, thanks for your time. It's good data. Let the public know it's out there. We'll be happy to work with anybody that wants to see more specific information.
Do you have a copy of this for the city council that we could look at?
As far as the match list?
Yeah, as far as the whole study that we can.
Yes, I just gave a copy to Rich, and guess what? He got it on his computer already, so.
All right, well, good.
So
That doesn't surprise us.
you can go through and look at all 151 slides at your convenience, okay? But-
Will we get a copy for Megan?
Yeah, if Megan would like a copy, we can get her her own special copy.
$10 a page though.
I think it costs us more than that.
Interesting. Thank you, Steve.
Well, like I said, it's good data, and thank you all for the support in getting it. It helps let us put a couple errors in our quiver when we go out and talk to these people.
Thanks, Steve. Next on our agenda is Jim Ferry, OEM.
Thank you, sir.
Safety
Oh,
plan.
I should remember, don't forget, in 2 years, we're going to have a conference center here. in Buchanan,
That's
too.
true, too.
And so that's going to even put more of an opportunity for people to consider.
We'll talk with them.
We've got enough telephone companies.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet with you, and I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. But, a year or so ago, we met with the commission. Our main interest at that time was looking at what we call incident action plans or emergency plans for public gatherings or public efforts that go on in the community. And that kind of was sparked by an incident that occurred in Indiana with an Indiana State Fair where they had a storm come through and created quite a bit of damage, had a lot of fatalities, and became a rather large and expensive investigation, a lot of lawsuits. And one of the first things, obviously, that the investigators wanted to know is, where's your plan? And who had different types of responsibilities for different things. Since that time, we had a similar incident that occurred up in Pocono International Raceway last summer with a lightning thunderstorm, and a lightning strike killed one of the participants, or not participants, but one of the people that were there to watch the race. Happened to have a personal friend in that area who is still shaking in his boots a little bit because fortunately for them, the county was insistent that there was a plan in place. So the county is pretty much exonerated, but there's still some other people that are tied up in lawsuits. So the liability is one issue that's a concern to us, but I think the other issue is the safety and welfare of the citizens of Upshur County. What we're asking is that both the city and the county consider trying to encourage different groups or that come in and want to use your facilities, the streets of the city, who may want to ask you for a substantial contribution, so you're funding a substantial part of their activity, which puts you in some kind of a partnership and a liability situation, at least as a non-legal person. That's how we look at it. And we'd like to have your support to try and encourage those groups to meet with us, with my office, and develop a plan. Now, the plan can be something as simple as names of people who are responsible and who's going to do what for a small thing, or something a little bit more elaborate, such as we do for the Strawberry Festival. I know Rich Clemens emailed me here a couple weeks before the festival as a result of what was going on in Boston, and said, you know, where are we at with planning for the festival? And we encourage Rich and some of the other folks to participate. But we've been doing that now for, I think, 6 years. And we're finally at the point where we have a plan. In past years, we've been kind of growing, trying to get the festival board to understand what we're trying to do, how it's going to benefit them, and how it's going to benefit, obviously, the people who are coming into Upshur County or who live here and participate or view that event. So we're at the point now where we actually have a plan. And hopefully all we're going to have to do is update that plan yearly. And we've identified people in key roles, what their responsibilities are, and so forth. But we have a lot of other activities that may not be quite as large, but I think we also have to look at how do we handle those if something major occurs. You know, if there's a severe storm, who makes the call? Festival Fridays is an example. You're down there every Friday night. Last year, the derecho came on a Friday night. You know, is somebody monitoring weather? Is somebody going to make the call? And who is that person? And what do we do with the people that are there? Is there a place for them to go to seek shelter? I think we owe that to the residents of the city and the county. So basically, I'm just here to ask you to consider some way of encouraging people who come to you and ask for permits or whatever your process is to allow the use of your facilities, or if you donate money to certain organizations, to encourage them. I know there was a concern that we don't want to dictate or mandate, and we're not asking you to do that. It would be nice if you could provide some strong encouragement to those groups, say, please sit down with our emergency management officials and we'll work with them, and hopefully in most cases, for smaller events, maybe in a couple hours we can put a plan together. And if it's a repetitive thing, year after year, we just update it. Names change, maybe some locations change, they add something, they delete something. But we got a working plan, and whoever's involved, they all know what they're doing, you know what to expect from them. Our response agencies know what to expect, they know who to contact. Mitch has worked very closely with us over the years with the Strawberry Festival plan, and I think he knows what efforts we put into that. And I think it's working. I feel much more secure in the fact that we've now got a workable plan. But basically, that's what we're asking, is just for your support to try and encourage people. Also, maybe if we could find a way to, and if you decide you want to encourage, or even if you don't, give us a list of those kind of things that are occurring. If you have somebody who comes in and applies for a permit or whatever your process is, let us know who they are, and if necessary, we'll contact them to see if they'd be interested in sitting down and doing something, so that you know, their liability is somewhat decreased. It helps reduce your liability, and it protects our residents. So that's what we're looking for. It's pretty straightforward, I think.
Jim, the size of an event, I mean, you know, with Festival Fridays every Friday for X amount of months, and then you have like 5K walks or 5K runs, or, you know, what's the threshold for?
Well, that's what we've been wrestling with, quite honestly, is, you know, we threw some numbers out before, and I think, I don't know what we had in our original proposal. We talked about 200 or more people, and if you were going to donate something in the neighborhood of $500 or something to that activity, then we'd like to sit down with them and do a plan. But, you know, that's something that we can talk about. It's really hard to dictate what those thresholds might be. But I'm not saying that if you're going to do a small activity that you got to make a big deal. But if you're going to bring, you know, hundreds of people or thousands of people in, and you're going to shut down streets, those kind of things, then I think we need to do something so that we make sure that everybody knows what their role is, and that you as county and city officials know that there's a plan in place, and hopefully that your residents are going to be protected, and that your emergency services folks know what's going on and can respond appropriately if something goes wrong.
Would or could it be appropriate for us to have maybe a document or a letter or something pre-prepared, so that as a group comes forward, might provide them that as a means of them to go forward to say, okay, you're going to do this, but here's these steps you need to follow next.
That's fine. I mean,
maybe that's something we could work.
That's I guess the choice that you would have to make. I know the commission at the time we spoke to them last year was a little hesitant to do anything that would mandate.
Oh, right. Yeah, maybe just to suggest.
But that's certainly your call. But if we could prepare something for you to give them that says, here's the process, we'd be glad to sit down with you And in most cases, it's probably not going to be a big deal. The Strawberry Festival is a major event, and usually we have to meet 2 to 3 times before that takes place to make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row. But some of the smaller ones, it shouldn't be a big deal. But I think the main thing is, if something happens, is there somebody that's part of that group that makes decisions so things happen?
Well, you're talking about the liability part of this. I think if we offered, if we said to this group when they come in and ask, we have an Office of Emergency Services, we'd be glad to work with you to develop an emergency plan. And here's your contact, and if we had it in writing, and if we some evidence, we presented that to them, and if they said, "No, we don't do that," something happens, at least, we've got 3 lawyers in the room. It seems like we'd have something to hang our hat on. At least we offered, we tried.
Were you involved with the car show last year?
Not really, no.
Because I predict that's going
That's
to
a
get
big
bigger and
event.
bigger.
We had some initial discussions with them, and it just kind of fell by the wayside. There was no follow-up. Now, I've already heard from, Jerry Kimball has already approached me about 2 weeks ago to let me know that it's occurring again, but that's as far as we've gone, and he knows how we feel,
I think it's
that we need to sit down and do something, but Jerry, I'm not sure if Jerry's the key person or not, but.
Rick Hawkins. Rick Hawkins.
Is that what it is?
Well, we had the incident with Festival Fridays, and quite frankly, we were sitting there watching the weather that night, but the radar stopped, so we didn't know how close the storm was actually to us before it actually got here. But, yeah, we need to do a better job on that. We do have the block party, the car show. It's going to be the last weekend in July. We also got an art festival, which puts a lot of people on Main Street. But as a city, we take reservations and charge a fee for all the parks, and if they want to close streets, we coordinate all that and so on. I don't see that it would be difficult for all of us, or for all of the city registrations, to ask a couple more questions. Who's the person we need to contact for follow-up? How many people are you expecting? I mean, there's going to be a community picnic on June 8th. I know it's written in the books, but I'm not sure, it's a lot of public knowledge, but you could have 200-300 people there pretty easily.
But when you start.
I think this is my viewpoint anyhow, this is something that we shouldn't just ask them. I mean, we should have at least gather some information and be able to get back to these people depending upon the size.
Yeah, if you gather, even if you gathered the basic information, and that gives us an opportunity maybe to call them and say, hey, would you sit down and let's take this a little further and do some other things, because when you start, like I said, when you start closing roads, then you block traffic, then you got to look at what are your emergency routes, do you have medical people available, do you have enough law enforcement folks on hand, do the other agencies know what's going on? A lot of times, we were kind of surprised when we found out that Senator Manchin was in the Strawberry Festival parade. He's, with his change in philosophy on gun control, I'd be a little concerned about whether he's not a target or not. And we were really shocked that we weren't notified that he was going to be in the parade. And I think that was really foolish on his part, but that's his call.
One area that I think could probably be improved, and typically the city gets a letter requesting closure of streets or so on, and Mitch gets involved and the police chief gets involved whenever those kinds of requests come in. And not trying to put them on the hot seat, but a lot of times our requests from the college to close streets or parades or this, they come in at the very last minute. So, one of the things going through the Strawberry Festival planning, it takes time to coordinate these things. It's not something you can just sit down and do. It takes a little bit of time to gather the information and organize it, make it useful.
But if they're repetitive type events, then once you get that basic format put together, then it's usually just change the names, or if you change, venues that are taking place, it's not a big deal to to change it. But it's something we can, you can kick it around, let me know if you have any interest in doing something, and if we want to look at, I don't know if it's practical to put numbers of people or dollar values, but that's something we can do. Let's say that you're going to do it uniformly.
Were you contacted this morning about the gas leak where they were going to close down?
Yes.
Okay. I read about it on
Stony
Facebook.
Road.
Yeah.
Fortunately, DOH notified us. Very rarely ever does that.
You don't get that at the courthouse.
We don't want that.
But you take it over and send it down.
Yeah, we have a standard SOP through the 911 center that they have a rather lengthy list of things that I asked them to notify me about. Some of those could be rather minor, but our concern is if it could start out as a minor event, but it could escalate, and all we're saying is, give me a heads up, and then we may just say, okay, we're going to ignore it, or maybe we'll just go take a look, but at least we're aware, so if it escalates, we're not caught with our pants down, and we can get the right resources there that they need.
I think it's a great observation, Jim.
Rick's a good man, man.
But we're just trying to make a nice, safe place to live, and I think that kind of maybe helps to enhance what you're trying to do with drawing more business into the community, too.
Well, everybody thinks they're safe. The people in Boston thought they were safe.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going to happen, where or when. So we may as well be prepared.
And my philosophy is not if, it's when. It's going to happen. I mean, I've been in this racket long enough that it happens. And it always happens when you least expect it. And small towns are not exempt from things happening.
Jim, we'll kick this around. I appreciate you coming out.
Well, we certainly appreciate you giving the opportunity.
Give us that information.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. You too. Next is Jay Holland, City Engineer, Army National Guard Project Update.
I'll be brief. There's not a whole lot of activity going on. It doesn't seem like it, but there is. I'll go over the city parts first. We've started the construction of the water line. We actually started that on April 24th. Even though these quantities that I'm going to present don't sound like a lot, we did our two most difficult connections, the beginning and the end, last month or this month, so that we could get those out of the way and then just connect the dots to put in the easy part of the water line. We tied in at the movie theater with our 12-inch line. That's going to be the main supply line to the Army National Guard for fire flow, as I've reported before. But it was also designed to be the eventual replacement of the water line that's running along Brushy Fork now. So, we had to do that right, make sure we had the right stuff and joints and fittings and everything for the connection. We've done that. And then last week on a 14-hour day, we moved over to Brushy Fork Road and did the open cut with the 6-inch water line to loop into the existing water line. But those were the two most difficult because that required keeping Brushy Fork Road open with only a single lane. We had the DOH out there. We were there till 9:30 at night, finally wrapping that up, because once you open up the road, you've got to close it up. And when I mean close it up, fill it back in and all that. We went back the next day, took out the top 12 inches and put concrete. The DOH has accepted that, and we moved on. That's it. We put in about 875 feet of 12-inch line and 49 feet of 6-inch. It doesn't sound like a lot, but again, it was the most difficult. Next week, if it's any indication of how this week's gone, next week we should be through the car lot, ADS formerly /IAA now. We should be through that. That's going to take us some logistics to work out as far as moving their cars, because their cars must be retained inside the fence or secure area at all times, and they're just overflowing with cars. So they're going to have to do some creative maneuvering of the vehicles around to allow us to get in there, work through, and get out of their way. And then we'll just parallel Brushy Fork Creek until we reach the guard site. And I think we'll be moving quite nicely next week. Talk about the contractor now for the actual Army Reserve National Guard Armed Forces Reserve Center. That's the long and official name of the project that's going on. But the contractor is currently working on both fill, excavation, and fill placement work. The site had a lot of topsoil, in some places in excess of 2 feet. And that's, as we know, topsoil is an organic material. It's not suitable for building large structures on. So they had to excavate that. Come to find out that the soil that was next in line, or the next strata of soil, was wasn't unsuitable material, but it was unsatisfactory material, and then it was too wet. There was some water that was just being retained on the site. They tried putting in some field drains to help alleviate that problem, but it was still just too wet, and rather than waiting for that soil to dry out naturally, they stockpiled it in an area. They went across the road and are bringing that material from beside MPL and the airport. They're bringing that down off the hill across Brushy Fork Road and placing that material in there to speed up the operation. They weighed their options and they decided, let's go with the material from across the road rather than try to wait for the unsatisfactory material to dry out. And if you've been out there this week, Tuesday through Thursday or today, they've actually started excavation of the building footprint itself. And again, due to that unsatisfactory material, they've actually had to undercut the building site 6 feet, an extra 6 feet down to get out of all that unsatisfactory wet material, and bringing that back up with drier material from across the road. But it's going quite well. Steve and I were talking earlier, and if the weather holds out this week and next week, they may actually start pouring the concrete foundations for the perimeter of the structure. So that's where they are. They're also installing a subsurface drainage system around the perimeter, again, to alleviate and collect this water that's just not draining the way it should, and collect it and discharge it into Brushy Fork Creek. And that's where we are. That's my brief update. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you go out there and look where it was, because they, like us, were held up for about a week and a half due to the rainy weather, and Strawberry Festival that came through, it made things rather difficult to complete some activities, but they've done a lot in 3 weeks worth of work out of the last month and a half. They've done a lot of work, as have we all. And I'll entertain any questions that you all may or may not have.
Any questions for Jay?
Are they doing any pilings out there?
No, I think it's all going to be continuous strip footings. Yep, don't think there'll be any piles this time.
Well, what was the original plan for the property across the road where they're excavating?
That I don't know. Steve, can you enlighten? I think they were just going to they were intending on borrowing some, but not the quantities that they're looking at now. I think they may take the unsatisfactory, the too wet material that they're stockpiling, and take it back over and regrade, reshape it. But
basically, they'll end up with a flatter piece of property across the way, which they then can do something with. Whereas before, it was pretty much sloped, couldn't be used. So it's a win-win for both people.
Yeah,
Place for a hotel.
Red Lodge?
Oh, sir.
Olive Lodge.
Jay, thanks. Appreciate you coming back. This brings us to additional comments and discussion. Anybody have anything you want to talk about? Commissioners? Mitch?
If I may, Mayor, I just, while everybody's together, wanted to maybe touch base and follow up on where we are standing now with the mapping and addressing requests for the fire department.
Well, I know that the agreement that went out to all the separate volunteer fire departments, there was some question about some of the language in there. So we have sent it to our insurance group. They're looking it over right now, just determine whether we can take that language off or change it somehow, and I'm still waiting for that with them. So it's still, we're attempting to get that corrected.
Timeline?
No, I sent it to them a couple weeks ago, I think, and I haven't heard back from them yet, so I can certainly follow up.
It's still, in my mind, and we've been going around, but the thing with having to have a waiver to me just, is that really a necessity? We haven't found any other entity, any other county agencies that have required a waiver from their county when they have released mapping and addressing information.
Well, I think from what I understand, I think Lewis County also does this, correct? And they have the same insurance group, so I'm not
But
sure.
they have,
whether-
yeah, but they have, when they have released your information to the fire department, they have,
Right,
we were told the county insurance was, the risk pool insurance was requesting a waiver, but Lewis County has the same insurance agency that Upshur County does, and they did not request it.
right.
And I think that's the reason she sent a letter down there, letting them know that Lewis County is doing it. Why can't Upshur County do it?
It's,
We're trying to take
and
care of it.
I know it's a minute point, but my mind is taxpayers' dollars, and it's gonna cost the Buchanan Fire Department, the city of Buchanan, it's gonna cost every fire department in the county to add an increase to their insurance, and I don't, to me, it just doesn't.
Has there been a cost figure on what that is gonna be to the city back in?
No, Michael says no.
So we don't know what the cost
We
is?
don't know.
I think it'd be good to find out, and then we know how big of an obstacle the cost is. But in the meantime, maybe we can check back with the risk pool, and then, if the issue's with them, then we'll get something in writing from them, so we'll have it.
I'm sure that the, coming up with a rider for an insurance policy is going to be a lot tougher for these county volunteer departments than it will be for the Buchanan volunteer fire department. Might be a little more money, but at least we've got a budget. Most of those guys are just stringing,
Well, I do know that in my landscaping business, any big outfit I work for, they require it.
Oh, yeah.
I have to, sometimes, I mean, usually it's not that much, $100 a year, to list them as additional insured. Core Hearts, when I work for them, they require, plus a lot of other requirements, but that's one of their requirements, that they have to be listed as an additional insured.
But Megan's gonna get some information
Right.
from the carrier, and we'll see.
And no matter what we need to do, we need to do that as
Yeah.
quickly as possible, because we have this information, we need to get it out there. It could save lives,
Right.
build any property and everything else. And it's a shame to keep holding up for months going,
Yeah.
you need a waiver, you need this, you need that, we don't want liability, you know what I mean? When you have this knowledge, we need to get it to the people that does everything to protect us.
I'll let you call tomorrow and get in touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I got a couple comments,
David has a couple of comments.
which is probably not surprising. I have a great respect for anybody that has been in law enforcement or is currently in law enforcement. But I received several phone calls from residents, and also I received one myself about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where an individual called up, represented himself, sort of wasn't real clear, either a member of the Fraternal Order of Police or representing the Fraternal Order of Police, and said that he was calling for fundraising for children for Christmas. I brought this up a couple of years ago, we discussed at the council meeting. They were looking for $250 for each child to provide for Christmas. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, how much, if I gave $250, how much is going to go to a child? He said 50%. And I asked him, I said, well, how much for you making the phone call and for the organizations that you're representing, they get 50% also. I think it's something that the city council and the county commission, we really need to go on record. This is not the kind of activity that we should be endorsing in our city or county. You know, if they want to come to a county commission meeting or a city council meeting saying that we're doing a fundraiser, we're going to solicit through telephone and so forth, they're knocking on door to door, I think the citizens need to realize that only a percentage of what that individual is going to give is going to actually go to the children that they're asking for. I mean, they're pulling on your heartstrings, they're pulling on service that I appreciate what law enforcement has done and has done in the future and in the past. I think it's wrong. I've also received phone calls for, there's a cancer ward for children. When you find out what they're getting, they get about 15% out of 85% what telemarketers get. And I just think our citizens need to be aware of this. And I would ask the paper and the Channel 3 to communicate this. I almost think there ought to be an investigative report from the papers saying what is going on. So I wanted to make this comment. In addition, I was working in my garden on Monday, pulling weeds. Every once in a while I get something besides a weed, which is very good. But there were some, they were kids walking down the street. I don't know how old they were, obviously, and they were using just awful profanity and very disgusting language. I have very good ears, so I probably hear more than most people do. But I asked them to please hold their profanity down and be quiet. It's a nice residential neighborhood with small children. And they really went off on me. So I left my cane in the garden because I didn't want them knowing I was blind. But I went out to the street and asked them to come back and talk to me and indicate what they were really saying. Well, that made it even worse. I went in and called 911. I told them it was not an emergency, but if they had a patrol car either from the sheriff's department or from the city, that there were some issues and identified my neighborhood. The next day, I don't know if the same kids, but one of my neighbors said that 14, 15, and 16-year-olds, both boys and girls, one of them exposed themselves to that individual. And I guess what I'm asking is that today with our technology, a lot of people have cell phones and they have camera capability. If you see something like this or hear this kind of language, take a picture of it and let's get it down to the sheriff's department and the city police department. It's, I think it's going to happen more as the summer progresses, but it's something that I don't think Buchanan ought to tolerate. And I'm talking about that. There are people that are running through stop signs in my neighborhood. I've talked about this before, and people are going way too fast. And in my neighborhood, 3 or 4 houses have been sold recently, and smaller kids are moving into some of the neighborhoods. And I'm worried about the people that speed and don't obey the stop signs. I'll probably talk about this again sometime. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else have any comments or things you'd like to discuss?
I'd like to bring up this whole towing issue just briefly, this issue with the towing companies that were operating during Strawberry Festival. And I understand that these companies are regulated by the Public Service Commission, but I received a lot of complaints. I mean, word spread like wildfire when it started to happen on Thursday, a Strawberry Festival week, of people getting towed. And then, I certainly don't quarrel with any private property owner who's going to have people towed off of their property that are there, unauthorized. I have no problem with that. Where I get concerned is that when all the recriminations start, everybody says, oh, I didn't know anything about it. Whether it's property owners don't know anything about it, the lessees of the property owners don't know anything about it. Nobody can say who authorized it. Nobody can say, anything. And I don't know what authority council might have to require or to maybe look into the possibility of an ordinance that would say, if there is going to be towing going on within city limits, the towing company is going to deposit, with the, police department, a copy of the written authorization from whoever has authorized them to get to start the towing, and require public disclosure of what's going on, so that people aren't in the dark as far as what the situation is. I think I think what upset at least people that I talk to, and what upset them the most is the lack of transparency in the whole situation. Nobody knew who was doing what and where and why. And
there's a contract that has to be signed, Tom, because we had a problem. I'm president of Mountain Cap, and I got a phone call on Monday that we own a building in Sutton, and an individual got their tow car away. He found out that I was president of the board as our property, and I knew nothing about it. Neither did the executive director, but one of our employees signed a contract, which was just, I think it was stupid, quite frankly. And we reimbursed the individual, told the individual that we'd be liable for any damage and so forth. But evidently, there has to be a contract signed for that towing operation. So I think we would, I'm not an attorney, but I think we could ask the towing company to, we want to identify who signed all those contracts.
Yeah, we want to copy it,
But
that
there's no-
authorization
right, there's
on
no
file.
transparency. The busiest weekend we have the whole year. We try to have a nice, friendly community, and we're towing people away. The other rumor is...
People who probably can't afford the tow,
Yeah.
can't afford the impound, they bring their kids. I heard one story about a young mom with several kids who got towed out of Goodwill. Now, we can argue, should they have been towed there, maybe yes or no, but here's somebody who probably couldn't afford, was coming down, maybe, who knows, they lived in town, lived out of town, obviously didn't live within walking distance, and, bring their kids downtown for a good time, and, now they're out, a couple $100.
And it's a good way to start a fight or some other things worse than a fight, because I heard that happen down there also. And the rumor was also that the businesses were getting a $50 kickback.
I heard that too.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true either.
Can we legally get this information from the towing company as to who they signed the contracts with?
Dave, could you make another call to the Public Service Commission and find out about this contract business?
I can inquire, Mayor. My shoot from the hip thinking is that since it is completely regulated by the state of West Virginia, and I want to be clear about this because the city and the festival issued a press release of sorts when this was happening. We cannot usurp the powers that the state says it has. Now, there are some provisions in the code that the night that you brought this to my attention, we shared information that if the towing company didn't very strictly follow the guidelines that are set forth in the code, individuals who have been towed can file a complaint with the Public Service Commission, and if the PSC determines that they've acted inappropriately, a first violation is a 30-day suspension of their towing privileges. And then I think a second offense is like 3 months, and a third offense is a year revocation of your towing privileges. So those individuals who believe that they were wrongfully towed, such as from a property where there was not a contract. I understand there were cars towed from the Las Trancas parking lot right across the street. Las Trancas was contacted by someone here, and they said, well, we didn't authorize anybody to do that. They can park there if they want to. Those are the kinds of things that the complaint can be filed with the PSC, and the PSC has the power, really the death penalty, if you think of it that way. If you take away that tower's opportunity to tow cars, that's really hitting them in the pocketbook where you want them to be hurt.
And that's a requirement that they put something ahead of time, with the police department or whomever. The issue is, if the city council has the authority to pass an ordinance like that, that's another matter. But if we had more transparency in the process, you could head off problems like the Las Trancas, and so which is specifically the situation I was thinking of, that where somebody's saying, one person saying, yeah, we have the right to tow from this parking lot, another person saying, no, you don't, and how does anybody know what the truth is?
I heard 22 businesses had it. I don't know if anybody else heard that.
Well, now,
Isn't this something that they should have had a business license in the city to do?
No other towing companies have a business license with us.
It's strictly regulated by the Commission.
They're regulated by the Public Service Commission.
Is the information I was asking about, isn't that through the Freedom of Information Act?
Well, I think that's why I said
Yeah,
today,
FOIA?
we might check a little bit more on this contract situation, and
I can send you a copy.
if there's, if it required a contract with Las Trancas or Goodwill or CVS or whoever, if contract is required, then it is public information. Maybe we could find out, but we spent some time on this, Tom.
Oh, good.
And we just came up empty.
Because a requirement to put the authority on file doesn't impede any of their rights. It only requires them to disclose their rights. Frankly, and I haven't researched the matter, but mean, I'd say pass the ordinance and let somebody challenge it. I mean,
Let's use some common sense, right?
I mean, all we're saying is that you have to do this in an open manner. You're not saying you can or cannot do anything. Just say whatever you do, whatever you have the right to do, regulated by the PSC, you can't do it in the shadows. You have to do it out in the open.
I think, Mr. Neal, the other facet of this that the mayor and I talked about, and I think that the city wants to be more involved in the future. Sometimes we lose sight of the fact that the festival is comprised of total volunteers. But there probably should be a better, we've heard that word planning used in a couple of different other matters presented here this evening. We could do a better job as a community coming together to plan for parking for the festival too. So maybe that's something we can look at between now and next May as well.
Agreed.
Okay. Going back to my scenario with the FOP, would it be appropriate for us to ask the president of the FOP come to the council to explain what they're doing?
What is the organizational structure of the FOP? Were you a member of the FOP?
Several years ago.
Is that a city-county group?
Internal order of police is consisted of police officers in the county, city, or any officer. They're every.
Is the FOP lodge that you were a member of here, is it exclusively law enforcement officers that are assigned in Upshur County?
No, several different counties. I think the one they got now is Blackstone, Lewis, Barber, Webster, Upshur. There's several different counties.
Okay.
And all police officers.
So it's a regional?
Yes.
FOP.
Can you be a member without being a police officer or a former police officer?
Yes.
So you can just join the FOP if you want to join?
I could because I'm a former police officer.
But I could not?
No.
Yeah, they do represent themselves as a regional group. The office is listed as on just past the hospital entrance.
Riley Heights.
Right.
I had a phone call too.
Yeah,
And
I think it's 44 or 22 or
He was
something.
calling from the Buchanan PD substation in Riley Heights.
Yeah.
Of course not.
And I got one from a guy who was calling from the barracks, from the police barracks.
Well,
I said, in Buchanan, yeah, downtown Buchanan. He said, yeah.
well, I would say that these people aren't even associated then with the FOP.
Well, I would
say that they are. I think
Yeah.
they've probably been contracted.
The fundraiser.
That's what they call it, right?
And the FOP does do that. Why, I don't know. I've had several people call and say, can I make a donation? Tom Paulson's name comes to mind right off the bat. And I said, no. Anybody calls my house and says, should I make a donation? I say, no.
Well, I would
Because
challenge,
half that money goes to the person on the other end of the phone that doesn't have a clue where Buchanan is, but they'll go, oh yeah, I'm friends with, Buddy Brady Sheriff's Department. Or the other guy on the phone says, oh yeah, I know Keith Rowan. Oh, Matt Gravy's a personal friend of mine. Matter of fact, he mentioned I should give you a call, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they throw names out there. They don't even have a clue. You know what I mean? The person says, well,
I think the county commission and city council, we ought to pass a resolution that basically does not endorse this kind of activity, because they really pull on your heartstrings for the kids and for law enforcement.
Dave, I like your first suggestion better. I think we ought to get a representative from the FOP to come to at least the next joint meeting.
Well, they're doing it now for Christmas.
I know.
The next joint meeting's not until September.
So maybe they would accept an invitation to come to the city council meeting and to a commission meeting.
And that would
Maybe
be,
on the same day of first and third.
that would be Keith Rowan.
And I'll write an editorial in the paper.
Well, but David, it's not just
A
that.
letter to the editor.
It's not just that. I mean, I get calls from every good cause there's coming and going.
Absolutely.
And you know what I ask them? Send me a financial statement that tells me what percent actually goes to that. And when you said 50%, I'm thinking that's pretty good.
Yeah, I know.
Because most of them are like
85.
80 to 85%.
Right.
And I just ask them, would you please send me your financial statement that shows how much actually goes to the cause and how much is fundraising? And they say, yeah. And I said, when I get that, I'll consider it.
I
And
did,
I never seen it.
I did a little, I did a
I
little
don't
more,
consider
I did a little bit more research, and it's interesting. You can get on the internet and find out the different organizations, the supposedly charitable and not-for-profit, how much their CEOs are making, how much the actual percentage of what the overall giving goes to the individuals that are in need. And it's really amazing, some of the things that you all would think would be really great or not so great. You all can do your own research on it, but it's really sort of very eye-opening type of scenario.
Borders on fraud, but border.
Well, it's a sham.
It is a shame.
Now, it's a shame.
Yeah, he spelled it wrong. Anybody else have anything? We are going to have, for city council only, an executive session following this, so I'd entertain a motion. We enter into executive session for West Virginia Code 698-4 for police personnel discussion.
So moved.
Second.
You get that, Rich?
Yep, Phil.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Thank you all.
Okay, we will now ask